How does the life cycle for managing AI-driven products differ practically from traditional non-AI ML products?
The cost of building anything is prompting. Can you write in English? Then you can build.
How do you see roles kind of changing of who's in the prod dev team that's really necessary?
We have these roles which are clearly divided. Okay, but if you look at it, right, the new world, what's happening with code becoming a commodity, product managers and data teams have superpowers without even a full-blown engineering team, because they can build these prototypes. And product managers, I think, will become more like product makers. At least they should be able to build their first MVP. That will become a table stake.
This idea of constant evaluation is something that's really interesting as you scale. Could you provide what that might look like in practice?
This way of evaluating is this framework which I claim that I introduced to the world, but Anthropic can claim that as well, or maybe Google has that too. But we thought about this idea that if you want to measure these agents, then they need to be.
Today's guest is Mahesh Yadav, a leading voice in AI product management who's built and launched AI-driven products at top FANG companies, including Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Google. He's also the creator of the highly rated Maven course on Agentic AI product management. In this episode, Mahesh shares his perspective on how Agentic AI is fundamentally reshaping the way we build and scale products and how your role may change with it. Don't forget to subscribe to Data Neighbor wherever you listen to podcasts and YouTube. And drop a like and comment below. It keeps us bringing you great content like this. With that, let's dive into our conversation with Mahesh Yadav. Do you guys need any water? Fix my mustache. Yeah, I was Shravi. I cut my hair. I shaved my hair off.
I'm looking at that, Sean, what the hell? Then you turn, I'm like, wait, Sean did a haircut.
Yeah, I had hair down to here for the last 5 years.
Went to get the haircut before this, but then I got a flat tire. Then I thought I should just cancel this.
Oh, God.
Then I was like, no.
I said you could have canceled for a flat tire. I shall kick us off then. Welcome back to Data Neighbor with Sravi and Sean. Today we're diving into, I think, one of the most hottest and practical areas in AI right now. And that's around how to build, manage, and launch agentic AI products that actually work and deliver. So we're really thrilled to be joined by Mahesh Yadav. Welcome to the show, Mahesh.
Thank you, Sean. And you did a great job with the last name, so I'm so proud.
Awesome. Sweet.
Welcome, Mahesh. I think we got another manga sort of an employee, someone who worked at almost all the icons or levers of Silicon Valley or, the West Coast. Yeah.
It was never intended, to be honest. I always wanted to. I knew that I don't want to work for Apple, but everything else was just happened. When I joined Microsoft, I wanted to just, Microsoft, we had this, when you join Microsoft, so I joined Microsoft at 61, 59, 60. 61.
Level? You're talking about the level?
Level.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
leveling engineer. At Microsoft. Yes.
And you know what we used to discuss at lunch most of the time? That the topic was that, you know what? Once you get to senior, you never can get fired at Microsoft. So the aim of life was that to get to 63 with a senior engineer and then just cruise for the rest of life like Microsoft. That was my aim, my goal in life, get to 63. But then, when you get to 63, 64, you get to 65, and then you're like, oh, okay, goal changes. But that's how I planned my life and just happened.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for our listeners, Heshman's at Microsoft, it's been at Meta, at Amazon, at Google, and he's the creator of a really popular Maven course on agentic AI product management. So he specializes in helping PMs navigate the complexities of product life cycles when we're using LLMs and agentic systems, which I think if you're working in tech today, it's everyone's trying to figure out how can we keep up and leverage AI in our workflows, whether it's for, making ourselves more productive or making the product itself more productive. So really excited to kind of get into some of the real world practices and frameworks and strategies today around that. Maybe to kick it off, actually, we can go pretty broad to start, but how does the life cycle for managing AI-driven products differ practically from traditional non-AI, simpler ML products?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that are same, right? Means you still need to discover, design, and deploy, those baseline remain same. But what happens inside these stages varies. So one thing, like if you change like how, let's see, like before when we go there, let's see what has changed for all of us. What has changed for all of us is that the cost of building anything is prompting. Like, can you prompt?
It's
Can
kind
you
of
write in
crazy.
English? Then you can build. So that's one fact which has seen, and now a lot of people are saying that, okay, I can do this, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can build something. Like vibe coding is a thing, and you can build something and you can start showing to customers or start showing to your managers or your friends or to potential customers even. Okay, great. So that's number one. Number two that has changed is that building for 5 people. Earlier, we never thought about that. Okay, we build something, we test it, and then we unit test it, and then we integration, and then we launch it. And then if it worked for 5, it worked for 500.
Right.
That's not true for AI. It's damn easy to build something that works for 5, but if you want to make it for 50, you have to do 10x more. If you want to make it to 500, you have to do 10x more, which is how you set up your evaluations, which is how you measure is your product achieving the goal, because most of the things are taste here. Like I say this is right, but you say this is right. And what is right? Who defines that?
Yeah.
And once you define it, can you match it? If you said that for 500 customers, it's really hard. Like anybody, like if you saw earlier, a lot of people said that, okay, here is chat GPT, here is my chat GPT. And it works for me. Means I can build chat GPT for me in like 5 minutes. But then once you run into corner cases which chat GPT actually shines on, and I will feel terribly. So nobody will use my product but theirs, although both can be built easy.
That's actually fascinating, Mahesh. Like, can we double click on that? Like, I'm trying to understand. To just reiterate what you just said, right? So most of the conventional products, the regular engineering products, have been you build a UI and you build a system behind it, and it can be scaled once it's out there in production, right?
Yeah, like
Because
Facebook, right? Means Facebook, if you have a like button and if it works for 3 of us, then hopefully everybody clicks that like button, it will work. But I build a chatbot which tells people how data science is different for engineers to program managers. And that answer will impress maybe Sean, and Shreya will say it's such a lousy answer. I don't like it. And Mahesh can say, yeah, it is lousy answer. And actually we two matter, and Sean is the builder. So he just loves everything what he creates. So now like how we go about that is definitely new. So that's number one.
it could be because of also the nature of the problem itself, right?
Correct.
The unlock that we currently have with agentic systems or AI, that especially with like natural language related, unlock that we have, the type of product itself is a lot more customized, personal, like related to the prompt at the hand or the question at the hand. And that entirely depends on the other side, who's on the other side, and the personality on the other side. You might have a persona that you can build something for, but there are so many nuances of the persona that you want to ensure that gets covered. And that's probably the hardest, is what you're saying, right? And that's where our own chatbot fails versus ChatGPT. That's the entire evaluation. All the knowledge they built is working for them. Yeah.
That's a very good double click there. The idea is that we have never shipped. What are agents? We are thinking agents or agentic as something that has unstructured data, has complex decision making that we cannot set in if else rules. And on top of it, the rule set evolves. So if you talk to an agent and if you give them one task, which is, let's say, read my emails, inform me every time you see a contract, and maybe find risks in it and send it to me. Once it start doing that, the next instruction you will have is, oh, actually, you're doing a great job. Why don't you just go and set it up in HubSpot for me? Okay, I will do that. And by the way, whenever you're in doubt, call me. Okay. So now you have like this 3 statements just evolve the rule set. Right now, the same product that you build or same thing you did is actually performing in a very different environment, in a very different stakes. Like you were giving me answers if it was wrong, like 3 out of 10 times it was okay. But now you're putting it in some statement of record, like HubSpot, Salesforce. Downstream processes will use this data and do it. But nobody told me. The user just raised the stakes by saying, great job. Let's just do this now. And when that happens, then what happens on your side? So the gist of this is that this is the first time we're trying to build intelligent products, and we have to think differently about them. We cannot just go with these. So I was just laying those down, right? One, yes, the fact is that cost is really low to build. Second is Evaluation is where you will be spending most of your time. And the last bit of that is that if you do it, then the possibilities of the next thing to do from here to the next thing are more and more, and the complexity continues to increase. So this is the loop of an agentic product. And once most of the people don't realize that they just come in and try to put the same, like, okay, I'm going to write this one solid PRD. I have these requirements. And then I'm like, design, and then data folks, you put the logging measurements and make us successful or get us data and build these models. And then we are done. Never happens. Here you start small. You say, this is going to work. You set your evaluations and then you iterate from there. And mostly that's the new way of building intelligence. Because we never stop evaluating ourselves, right? Look at like Sean and Shiva, like you got evaluated at least every 6 months. I got evaluated every quarter. And then the bar was higher. Similarly, for agentic product, I think we need to think like that. Like, how can we measure intelligence and raise the bar, and what door bar needs to be in that specific domain? That mostly new skills that as a product manager you need to go develop.
Yeah, the evaluating thing's so interesting because there's just so many. It's like the people's acceptance criteria can like vary from person to person, like you guys were like saying, but it's also like even within a person, your acceptance criteria can like vary based under like what's going on that day. Like you're talking about like getting risks around documents and stuff. And if there's some deadline for like a contract getting pushed through, maybe you're like, it looks good enough. Like as a human, if I'm working on it, that's probably what I'm gonna do. But if you got a bunch of time or it's like a high level customer, you're like gonna be more specific. And so then like that's hard because when you look at that in data, it's like totally different like risk, acceptance criteria even within the same person. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting too that I've been kind of like thinking about as I work with this stuff is like it's like sometimes the stuff that you want the LLM to respond with, to a human, it's like very simple tasks. And so when you get it wrong, it's like, how did you get that wrong? That's like such a easy thing you missed. It's also, there's also kind of like not as much forgiveness sometimes by the user, where it's like, this thing's stupid. It couldn't even figure out like this one easy thing, even if it figured out a bunch of other stuff pretty well. Whereas I think when, I don't know, I'm looking at my Netflix or something and I get recommended some stuff I don't really like, I'm like, I mean, that's pretty hard. It's trying to figure out what movies I like. I give it a little more forgiveness. So that's kind of interesting when you're trying to replace like human work to some degree.
Or then Netflix is really bad. I spend like 30 minutes finding a title.
Are you giving it right signals, Mahesh? That's probably because we are not giving it right signals. Make sure you love
but you never give the right signals to TikTok, right? Means TikTok doesn't ask you for any signals. We worked at Facebook, and Facebook, we thought we were so proud of like our moat, which is social network, which is a lot of people connected to a lot of network. And then if Shiva joins, then I know Sean. Sean is already on the network, so I can figure out what Sean likes, and then I can figure out from Sean to Shiva. At least I have a connection, and then from there I can figure out what Shiva will like. And then here comes TikTok, a killer format, 60-second, and the feedback is in the product. And that's, I think, what is the differentiation for that Netflix never learned from, because Netflix still believes that because they can build a lot of titles at this point and be the first one to release them on TV, that's their moat. I don't know if that's ready for disruption. At least I go through that pain. So just came Sean, I don't want to interrupt it, but just the pain was so high that I wanted to let everybody know that. Please fix that.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed you didn't work at Netflix, so maybe that's why it's suffering.
That's exactly.
He didn't get it in the manga. And manga N is Netflix, right? Probably that's the reason.
Got it. That's the whole reason, right? But Netflix is a great place. I mean, I heard a lot of great things about Netflix. Just that I spend like 45 minutes searching for something and watching all the trailers, and by that time my TV time is over.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. I have a follow-up based on what Sean mentioned around the whole agentic thing and that. But I want to continue the conversation around what you mentioned with TikTok, so that, you know, when our listeners are listening to, when you said it learns from its own feedback, can you explain that slightly more? And then we can jump into the agentic one.
So what happened is we have this idea, I mean, obviously this forum I can talk about it, because we have like this idea of precision and recall. And if you are looking at like product manager especially for all the people who are trying to get into AI product management, we don't only talk about how accurate your results are. You're making calls like, is it precise? Or what is your precision or recall? And at different stages of your product, you are making a call. Do you want to go for precision or you want to go for recall? Precision, just for everybody, putting the
Yes,
stage.
yes. No,
Precision
no,
is
please,
like,
please
if I
explain
give
it.
you 10 results, then out of those, let's say these out of 100 songs, you want to like these 10 songs. You like these 10 songs. We have a ground truth. If I got all these 10, if I got 12 songs, then, and out of those 10, 12 songs, then I have 2 false positives and 10 true positives. Correct? Then my precision is 10 by 12 plus like true positive plus false positive. And numerator is true positives. That's your precision. Similarly, your recall is forget false positive, false negatives. So let's say I got all these, instead of 10, I got 8, and I can have as many, I got 20 out and 8 are right. So I have these like 10 which I missed, right? So I'm false negatives, which is I thought these are going to be liked, but they're not liked. So the idea is that, hey, if I suggest something, are you going to like it? And if I focus on that, or I focus on getting everything that you will like, and some of these you will not like. And as Sean was mentioning earlier, okay, Netflix, high recall, and who cares? But if you are like trying to give me an answer at ChatGPT, you have to be very precise.
Yeah.
You can have 5 options behind the scenes. These can be the 5 answers, but you get one shot. Because as Sean said earlier in his example, that people are not going to tolerate AI. Like at Google, we built something and we launched it, and you can think of like, how many interactions people want to have with this thing. Let's say it comes between you and support, and you have this AI thing. 85% of people drop after the second chance. So the first chance is, I'm here to help you. You say something, I say something. And if that's stupid, 85%
They're not
don't
using it
give you a
anymore.
second chance.
Dang.
Right? So highly precise, right? And then Netflix can just throw 45 titles at me and I can still be like, every night, go to 45. It's okay. So what happened at Facebook is that it's very precise, like earlier algorithm, very, very precise, because obviously we had a lot of data. But when TikTok came along, they went with high recall and they showed you videos. Even today, they keep throwing different kind of videos that and they could do it because at that time they had a killer format. Means nobody could afford that.
Yeah.
But they had a killer format. They were the only company which can just get 60-second out. So they threw a lot of things at you. And the feedback in the product was that if you swiped up without doing that 60-second, that was the feedback for them. That, hey, this topic is not liked. At least we know that now about this user. And I don't need to know Sean's or relationship. This dude is giving us feedback. And they continue to throw a lot of things at you. So what happened is people were so bored at Facebook that I got whatever Sean liked, or I got only things that my friends and family liked, and nobody knew my
No,
hidden.
Instagram does this too right now. Like,
But now
imagine.
everybody does it. Once you copy the killer format, you copy the recall also. But at that point, you were like part of some of the people you met, but you're not that.
Yeah.
You're much more different. You have fantasies from your childhood. Like, I don't know why I just like wild animals hunting. And nobody knew that I liked, but TikTok somehow knew it.
Nice.
Because they just threw so many things at it. And every time that happens, they see that I engage and now they have that. And if you keep that, so that was the idea. Yeah, Shravya, like when I was saying that the feedback was in the product and that's needed. That's what whole AI can do. And now it's table stakes. As you rightly mentioned, if Insta doesn't do that, like first they have to catch up. And then obviously they will catch up because TikTok is banned and all. There are other ways to catch up.
Thank you for getting to that, Mahesh. One, now going back to the whole agentic story that, that Sean was talking about. What I wanted to point out is, so you mentioned like the 3-step rule, right, for agents. One was cost, the second was valuation, and the third was almost like a scope creep, or
means you think
it's
of
not
it more like a
deterministic.
responsible also, like take it from that angle that at some point you never worried about because you said X and Y happened and you could track back Y to X.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. You're dealing with an intelligent system, and intelligent system can tell you that you're stupid on a question. And right now you can talk to me, and if I'm intelligent and ask something bad about any company I work for, and if I'm careless, I will just say it. Same, if you train the data and if you train these models to solve these or have interesting podcast, they might say a lot of things. And that's your third aspect, which you never cared about, building normal rule-based products, which is a big deal now. Because
Yes.
imagine ChatGPT talking bad about US government. It's a death
Yep.
warrant day one. And that can happen. And if it happens, they won't get 3 or 4 chances. Maybe they will get a second chance given current state. But that's all you have as a product manager. So that's the last aspect, which is the scope creep, is this idea that people want you to extend. When you extend them, in my example, they want you to go insert in HubSpot and you would happily do it. But the downside cost is that, okay, nobody checked it. You entered
Right.
something like a liability amount, and now that's got published. And now you ended up buying a huge insurance because there was an error on zero, which is easy for LLMs to make. And now
Yeah.
you, instead of buying a 1 million insurance, you bought a $10 million insurance. And your company has a 9 million on the balance sheet because this dude decided to just do it. So that's another, like the third aspect of it, which is people want you to continue and you can continue, but how to control you there
Yeah.
is the third aspect.
It's almost like a rogue intern.
Yeah. Yeah.
A really smart MIT or Harvard intern just gone rogue.
Yeah.
And
And we
how
do
do you
that, right?
ensure they are in bounds, right? And eval the hell out of them. Like, what do you do when you have this? What do you do when you have this? No, wrong answer. Go back, stuff like that. But ensuring it's just almost impossible, impossible of a task if you want to like train. So who are we as humans? We grew up and we have taken the feedback. The evaluation in us happened through parenting, through teaching, through like just ourselves, like looking at the world. You go, put your hand in fire, you get burned, all of these things, something you've learned explicitly, something you've learned implicitly. And we are trying to replace a human who learned all of this, how to communicate, how to do all of this with an agent. So I think eval definitely is the biggest, problem to crack, especially once we start deploying them into real world.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? So if you can figure out all the unstructured, complex decision making and put something out there, even it's loved by 5 people, and then start from there, put an eval, and then put your guardrails on top of it, and then you're willing to work every day on improving it, then enter agentic AI. If you're living in that world where you think you will write a fancy PRD, or you are a data scientist you have created this one data model and you want the whole product org to fit into that,
Yeah.
and not change your requirements, then maybe agentic world is not for you. It's going to get complex, right?
Yeah.
Complexity of building agent AI systems is going to continue to rise, and the bar what you need to meet expectation bar like for humans is going to get pushed for agents too, and you need to push yourself. And there's just a lot of iterations in this spiral, which is an amazing time, to be honest. Like if I worked at why I joined Microsoft, because there was no processes, nobody know how to write code. You can hire anybody in smaller companies, and then you deal with people who don't know how to write code, and rest of your life you keep training them or testing their code or fixing their bugs. That was your life. But you aspire to work at Microsoft because Microsoft was such a machine for making ordinary engineers into super awesome engineers, or ordinary data scientists into awesome data scientists, because 3 things: they had tools, they had processes, and then they had mentors, which you cannot get anywhere else. Like you just can't. You have to go to Microsoft and get access to that. And if you get out of Microsoft, you are lost. In AI, they don't have that. They don't have the right evaluations. They don't have the right guidelines. They don't have the right ideas. So the advantage for iterating every day, or like pushing yourself and restructuring yourself in this new world where you're spending most of your time evaluating your products and then writing new requirements and then quickly building something and then going again and again, is the speed advantage. And that's what you want to have, like if you were a data scientist or you are a product manager or you are an engineer. And I think it's like level playing field. And I think very few times in our history that has happened, and it's happening with AI here. So I'm very excited on that aspect of AI.
Yeah, I think we've talked to a few guests around on this podcast where it's like a scary time, but also an exciting time, because like some people's like security feels like it's not there anymore, but at the same time, all these barriers that have existed And the security is not there because these barriers are being broken. But at the same time, like you can take advantage of that to do stuff you couldn't do before. Maybe so on the topic of like, yeah, so this idea of constant evaluation is something that's really interesting as you scale, and you have to like, it can't just become like more robust on itself. You have to constantly be learning along with it. Maybe could you provide like, I don't know, like an example of like what that might look like in practice? Yeah, how
Yeah, so I think one reason why by the way, I know you talked about my Maven course, so thank you for selling it. The idea was that when I was getting into product management, I don't know why, that's for some other day, that why I got into product management. But product management or anything like product management, which most of the engineers and data scientists now need to do with AI, is a very non-concrete thing. And a good product manager to versus a bad product manager, there's no exam for it. You have to try them. You have to throw different things in different aspects, and then you will know that, okay, this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
Same way, like if you are looking for, when I was starting this idea that, hey, okay, now I now learned, like I was the first one to build the agentic framework, first one to actually ship real agents to production and see all the problems.
Yeah.
And then I turned around and talked to my friends, and I was like, there is a huge gap here. And how can I help filling that? Because I was lucky at Shravak can attest to that at Microsoft, when I joined it, the stock was at $30 and I was stupid enough to hold it and never sell it. So I was like, okay, money was doing okay. And then I moved from Redmond to Bay, and I was missing all my friends and having those quality discussion. So I started a community in 2022 where I show up every Saturday and I talk to people and I just share broadly what I'm learning and trying to bridge the gap. Please
Nice.
share the link on that. But
Yeah.
that's how, and then from there, the course started, because I was like, how can I raise the bar for these and then have larger discussions beyond like 101 discussions? So that was the idea of the course.
Nice.
But coming back to evaluations, right? So this is one of those topics that you can't just talk or teach in like a 30 minutes call.
Yeah.
You needed to just sit down and do it. So let me just give you the nuggets that I cover in the course. And we have done like at least 5 or 6 sessions in free community, which are on our YouTube channel as well.
Awesome.
But the idea is that, okay, you have intelligence. You build an agent. And let's take an example. We build an agent for which is a legal assistant or a lawyer engineer. And what it does is you give it a contract and it tells you all the risks in the contract. Everybody wants that. Nobody wants to sign a contract without knowing risks. The cost of knowing risks is very high, both ways, by money and time. You have to find a lawyer and you need to know, is that a good lawyer? And second, if you even got an average lawyer, which people told you is a good lawyer, their charge is like a big lawyer. So how can AI help here? Okay, so you build a product. It tells the risks. Now you want to show, do you want to sign all your contracts based on these risks or not sign your contracts based on these risks? Who is judging this agent's quality? Or let's say you need to set that evaluation. So what we talk about is, how can you do that? So one is, first thing which everybody talks about is having a lot of like ground truth data. That means you have to reduce the scope. You can't just do risks all around. And this is product management 101 now. Because if you don't need product managers, you will just go and launch a product which does risk in every contract and it won't work. Means it will excite people. It's like Devin.ai, a lot of excitement, but a lot of less like real value.
Yeah.
If you want to build windsurf of Devin instead of Devin, then windsurf, the idea is, hey, can I narrow the scope? Which is, can I just do it for master service agreements? Okay, you narrowed the scope. I'm going to give you risks for master service agreement. And if you upload an NDA, I will say, I'm sorry. And then I can observe if a lot of NDA, then NDA. Okay. So let's say we're doing for NDA. Then you want to look at what are the different risks people have given to different people and create a ground truth of that, which is, here is an NDA. Here are the real risk by an expert. Who is the expert? Your company person. Maybe you're working in a company which does NDAs and you already have a lawyer. And that's where this idea of domain expertise comes along. So you need to be that domain expert. You need to be sitting next to that lawyer and getting all the previous NDAs and what risk they pointed. Okay, now you got X and your Y is risk and you can match that. So you got the ground truth and you got the source data. That's your first set. If you have that, you can do basic precision and recall. Like how many risks am I finding? How many risks a lawyer is finding? Am I getting all of them? And I'm getting only those? Then I'm highly precise. I'm getting all of them, but I'm getting more, which people are ready to ignore. That's a recall. right? So now you can calculate two numbers. Are you accurate? Did you even got the right? How many of risks you got? How much precise you were in getting them? And what is your recall? Good. So now you can set these three metrics, and then you can say a good product is which gets a high accuracy, high precision, or good accuracy and high recall. That's okay. And you can say in the beginning, we will be okay with recall and then we will optimize the precision. So that's your first matrix. Now, a risk has a language itself in it. Like, what is the liability if I screw up this NDA? There's a liability clause and somebody need to explain it to me. So now you are judging the subjective part. So let's say this is your objective part. And you can put more metrics here, like how much time I took, how many tokens I consumed, how many times I need to make this attempt. All these are like other things to measure. But let's just come back to quality. The second way of evaluating is this framework, which I claim that I introduced to the world, but Anthropic can claim that as well, or maybe Google has that too. But we thought about this idea that if you want to measure these agents, then they need to be helpful, honest, and harmless. This is what Shravya was taking us. When Shravya was talking about this idea that her parents helped her, her school taught us, we were told not to be harmful. All are like a lot of people teach you to have a lot of power, but know how to contain it, is this idea of harmless. And if you hire somebody to do intelligent work, you want them to be honest. You don't want them to screw you up or explain, because once you have smartness, you can also befool me. Because most of the people who are going to take this NDA and take the risks are also open for me to influence them. I can just quote fake articles, create fake articles, even publish them and then show them. I can use my smartness against you. So am I honest and then helpful? And how you know what is helpful? How you know what is honest, what is harmless in this particular domain? This comes by running experiments with your users and first doing interviews with your lawyers. So if you are domain expert in that, you will ask, hey, what is helpful when you answer this liability question? And then a lawyer will tell you, yeah, you have to tell the amount first. Then you have to explain what is that liability means. And you have to explain when it doesn't apply, when it applies. And if you have these three things in that liability clause, whether it is good or bad as a risk, if I see these three, then it's helpful. But if you come back and say, yeah, liability is too high, that's not helpful.
Right.
Okay. As a novice user, maybe the answer was good for me, but now I can put an objective questions, which is what is helpful, what is honest, what is harmful in these circumstances, and put them as objective questions. Is it verbose? Does the liability clause has explanation on these 3 points? When it is answers it, does it quotes a source? And when I click it, can I validate that source in less than 2 seconds? So if anybody is saying yes, yes, yes to these 5 agents, and now let's say there are 5 agents, which all are solving the same problem because the cost of building is so low, then anybody can listen to my idea and can build it. But what they will fail is they will not know what is helpful, honest, and harmless. And what a good product manager will do is they will publish these numbers. They will say, this is my agent, it's accurate for NDAs, this is my accuracy, this is my precision, this is my recall, this is my helpfulness, this is my honesty, and this is my harmless. And here is my data. By the way, I ran it on all my competitors, and this is how badly they do. And if you go with this, if I go to a customer with this, highly likely the customer will trust me. And when they experience the product, they will have exactly the same like a lawyer does. Because you have measured and you have said 20 things which makes a response helpful. You have marked yes, yes, yes on those in your evals. So if you can do this subjectivity and objectivity and then iterate on it, I think you can build agents and you can control their behavior. And you won't be successful day one, but every week you will add to helpfulness. And something we are building now, at this point, we have like 70 checks on helpfulness. We check 30 things for honesty. We check 27 things for harmless. And we are still like starting, right? I'm building something on my own now.
Yeah.
Now imagine every time there is a question answer and I want to run an eval, I have 132 questions to go after. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then I put a score which is saying I'm 78% helpful. I am 64% honest, and I am 3%, sometimes some 3% harmful. Can I take that bet now? Can I release it to my first customers? I can make that call as a product manager. A leader can sign off on that. And if something goes wrong, you can say that we are aware of this. We knew 3% we will be harmful. And we took this judgment call. It screwed up. We're going to fix it. We're going to come back. Then we will be 1%. And maybe that's how good we will be. As humanity, we are like all harmful too, and depending upon the day.
Yeah.
So that's like, I know you just gave me simple prompt and I just brag around a lot of output tokens here.
No, no.
Wanted to see if that made sense.
I think it makes total sense. It's funny.
Can I give you a rating on how harmful, helpful, and honest you were in your answer?
Yeah. That's it.
I have got
That's
eval.
yeah, that's
Not
exactly
20.
right.
Kidding.
Yeah. But I think it's it's interesting. I recently at my work gave like a similar presentation, and I had the metric families. I called them something different, but it was similar, where we talked about coverage, quality, and faithfulness, where coverage is like precision and recall. Quality is like the helpfulness and relates more back to like the user value. And then faithfulness relates to what you're talking about, honesty. And like, hey, is this based in facts, or is it like you were saying, am I making stuff up and lying to you? Am I hallucinating? But I really like what you're talking about, where you have like within helpfulness, you have many dimensions of helpfulness. And as you scale the product and you see your overall helpfulness rating goes down, you can segment that and add new kind of dimensions of things to evaluate on.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty
And that allows you, right? Means that is the thing that, because what will happen is, like we were discussing earlier, somebody will say, yeah, I answered liability. Liability is a risk. What else you need? And by the way, when I read this NDA, I don't want to know three things, like why liability is a risk. You are telling me to point these three. It's not helpful. And you gave me low rating. And this is a developer and he has things to do in his life
right.
or her life. What are you going to do? You're going to say, dude, wait, here is a question. Here's an expert who gave me this question. Yes, you can ignore it. But here is a competitor who passed this test. Do you still don't want to work on it? It's okay. I can take that bet, because that's the second battle you fight. One battle you fight upfront, which is how to set these evaluation. Second, how can you build the assurance with your team that this is the best thing for them to go fix or prioritize.
Yeah.
And I think the second level brings that, Sean.
Yeah. It is interesting. Like what are you kind of baselining off of too, in terms of like what metrics you should use? Like in the beginning, it's probably like, can you do it better than a human or as good as a human? Or can you do it like 80% as good as a human, but for 5% of the cost or something? But then the other part of it is like you just said, okay, now everyone's beating humans. We got to beat the other competitors leveraging AI.
And it's a constant hill climbing dimension for you.
Yeah.
Like for us, right? Means everybody, like if you talk to my dad, he believes he has figured out his life, right? Most of our dads. But if you take them to an exam and then you say, you're not that, and if you talk to the same way to a guy who's like 21, 23, you give the same advice, this guy acts on it and this guy doesn't. Because the dimension of hill climbing of quality, we all can enhance ourselves. That's what humanity has done. But can we set that for them? Can we just set every 6 months and change it? And that's what these kind of frameworks allow you to do, is like
It's also learning too, right, Mahesh?
Yeah.
Like the more they work on these problems, the more feedback you get, the more memory you gather, the more context you gather. It is also setting you up for success, building muscle to climb that hill, probably, right?
And it's so unblocking, because otherwise you are so afraid. Because one day some manager tries it, like some CEO will try your product before launching and they will say this is bullshit, right? Because they tried it and they didn't get the risk they thought their lawyer gives. And that day you can say, great. And then you work on those 5 things and then you don't launch, and then you give it to that day and then they say it's great. But then their manager, maybe a director, tries it, board of directors, and they say it's BS, and then you never launch. So how can you be objective about it? Is you hire a lawyer, you put them these questions, and then you say, hey, we are launching because this guy gave us this. You are saying these 3 things, but to be honest with you, subject matter experts don't care about these things. So even if we wrote an essay as a response, this guy wanted an essay and it's stamped by this guy. So please let us launch. And as you mentioned, Shravya, like then after that, it allows me to unblock and say, actually, my customers are more aligned to my CEO than this lawyer expert. And then I can change it. And I can add more dimensions to it. And it's a constant hill climb. As you achieve one target, you set the next one, you set the next one, like human does. And that's the advantage ChatGPT has, right? Means we have a lot of chatbots today, and they're very powered by very powerful LLMs. But this idea that they are able to hill climb on quality, and hopefully on their side, somebody's setting that what is helpful for users, and they're able to adapt and know it, is the real moat in your products. And if you look at data science team right here, like setting these things, like I love my data science team because some of those were able to find these patterns and say, Mahesh, people like these, so I need not to go to my expert, and they can give me the what is helpful, what is honest, what is harmless as well. And if you can do that, we all can build awesome intelligent machines,
Yeah.
because
So
everything else is like, I think, table stakes or so easy to do these days.
it's like really being able to, like, the evaluation isn't just about like, can it make a response? Can it make a response that works for me? But like really connecting it to like user value and understanding like what is the user not getting out of this? What do they want to get out of this? And really lean into that as you like continue to iterate and put evaluation metrics around every single new thing you learn about like the user value.
It's almost like, I mean, if we summarize whatever we've discussed so far, what I can think is there's like objective part of stuff which we know that this is the user product we want to build and this is the user value. It's still not totally objective because it is like, like the language and, nuances of a language, yes. But you could definitely have like a coverage, recall, like metrics that are pretty like easy to measure and go with. And there's also subjective part of things like the helpfulness, the faithfulness that Sean said, and all of these that we need to build eval sets and metrics to make them objective, right?
Correct.
It's almost like questioning ourselves and questioning the subject matter expert. Why did you make the decision that you make, right? Like it could be, it's literally, I would say maybe like questioning our consciousness, like questioning this subject matter expert. You have all like chefs, right? They say they're like really good chefs, but there's a Michelin star chef and there's this chef that apparently is so good. Whatever they do, it just comes out wonderfully well. It's because they put their soul in it. Now we want to question what is that soul? Like what got into it, right? The intuition that we talk about, we know this is wrong, we know this is right. Now you question the hell out of it and understand, can I eval that? Can I like ask a question to it and get a yes, no, and measure my LLM on basis of that, right? I think that's the most interesting part of this agentic world is understanding the patterns that we all took for granted, that we all just run by. Now you better put them in this yes, no, metrics grid and get your LLM tested on that.
Shravan, you just made my day, This is exactly the message I wanted to convey, which is our job is to make these subjective thing objective, and you got it so well. So I think I'm so proud that
Oh, thank you so much.
of you,
I
right?
think
Because it was just like, this is what I tell a lot of stories in my, but there was like this jest that I want to land, but I don't want to just start with this is it. But when you said it, I was like, got it. I had that moment there. So thank you. One thing I will leave you with this on evaluation, last thing is, okay, now I have 132 questions. And I have to hire a lawyer to say yes or no, because I can't say yes or no in most of these. Because, okay, here's a question, here's an answer. And is it verbose? Is it to the point? Does it articulate the values of that particular law in that particular segment? Who is going to make this call? The product manager, not the data scientist, not the engineer. Now you need to have an expert in your team, like those Michelin star restaurant chefs. They're not cheap and they're not available, and you need to scale your products, and you have 132 questions worth of eval, and half of them or most of them are yes at this point, right? Because obviously, hopefully you have a good quality. So how you scale your evals, that's the other challenge we have. How can you have this as part of machine and AI can evaluate itself? That's the holy grail of AGI. I think we need AGI because LLM as judges has a lot of limitation and doesn't work. That's another secret which people don't tell you. I like how people simplify things. They're like, product management, yeah, we don't need it. Evaluations, yeah, just create ground truths. Then, okay, how to scale LLM as a judge. I'm like, okay, great, go sleep. So this is I think those go sleep moment for me. But how to now scale it is the next challenge. And what works there is there are a few simple questions there which you can automate, which is harmless mostly, which is, am I asking for credit card information? Am I talking bad about my competitors using profanity or hate speech or something like that? All these are already solved problem. We build AI for them, and you can call these out-of-box guardrails to automate these questions. And now you don't need to ask these questions to people because people also don't feel comfortable answering these and finding them as hard. But the real one, which makes your product, which is did it answer actually did the lawyer job in those helpful, honest also, I think you can do it now with is the answer grounded? Is the source answers that we have these now as API calls? But the real deal helpfulness is still a barrier and remains the barrier. There, I want to just tell you a framework which we use or I use is anybody can give you an LLM as a judge. You
Yeah.
can try it. There are a lot of framework which even give you out of box. But make sure you create a ground truth and you have your precision and recall for the judge.
Yeah.
And it has to be 80, 90%. And if you just set that like your precision and recall of an LLM judge, which is like a human judge says this is yes, and you say yes too, and you are not saying messing up this. And if you set that high, like above 80, you will learn what we know, which is they don't work. So still like building things where you have deep domain expertise is suggested because you can build something by hacking it or by morphing into their personality.
Right.
You can launch something, but it's not done. Launch is the start. This is what I think we are iterating in this podcast from the beginning is that what is different in agentic AI? Start is just your first day of showing up at work. And then you have a journey to go. And if you need SMEs, if you're building for a law, you need to take a lawyer along with you. And that way you can like subsidize it. Or you need to wait for an LLM who can be judge and do it for you 90% of time accurate. So 3-step process, make sure you have ground truth so you can at least know set for your engineering. Make sure you have subjective metrics and you continuously evolve like Shravya was doing. And then LLM as judge, which Sean will build for you. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I think that's so key around having like the subject matter experts in the domain. I wonder how you think kind of product development teams will evolve and change. Like we talked about now there's like, I think a lot of product companies have had like some SMEs like floating around, but it's probably now it's like, okay, we really need, like you said, there's not as many enough. They're expensive. Like we probably need more embedded in more teams. At the same time, we were talking about earlier about how we're like breaking barriers. So then like maybe like product managers could be doing more of the data work. So maybe there's less need for certain data resources. Like how do you see like, I don't want to be like 20 years, but like, as no one can tell, but like, how do you kind of see like roles kind of changing of who's in the prod dev team that's really necessary?
I think that's a very good question, and I contemplate, or I think about that a lot. What stack like at Microsoft? I don't know. Shraddha and me intersected at Microsoft, so I'm just wondering when she was there. But when Microsoft built the Nokia, we bought Nokia. Palmer bought Nokia, and then Satya came and he said, we don't want to play in hardware. And this is a lost battle maybe in mobile. So let's focus on cloud and be a software layer or a platform company. And let's not compete with Apple. And he sold all Nokia. And the second thing Microsoft did, first time in the history of Microsoft for the last 25 years, is that we had 3 roles: program manager, software engineer, and stats. This is how we build software. We never knew anything else. Program manager writes a very detailed technical specification. Software engineer follows that specification line by line and builds it. And SDAT takes that specification, tests it. This is the time when we shipped Windows on hard disks or those floppy disks. So, or CD drives, right? Means you get this license and we will support everything and there's no like GitHub. So a high quality product mattered. And at that time, what happened is the world shifted in Bay Area because most of the products started after internet can be easily built, can be easily tested and easily updated, which Windows update was such a pain, right? For all of us. Like Windows was updated like 6 months or a year. But here Google was able to put an operating system, Chrome, and Facebook updates itself. And the idea of having an SDAT was not needed because I can just let the developer test, run all the automated tests, and then launch. And if we find a bug, what's the problem? We'll just release another one in a week. Microsoft learned that late, and that made Microsoft suffer a lot. And then eventually when we collapsed that, we thought the whole world will fall apart at Microsoft, and it didn't. And till today, there's no SDAT at Microsoft, at least in the software stack in Azure or in Windows. And that was a good learning for me. Like I was there in that era. And same, I continue to think like what that looks like for an AI era.
Yeah.
So we have these roles, which are very lanes, which are clearly divided. Okay, product manager tells what to build for who we are building, then how to build is program and engineering, and then we ship, and then we continue and then data teams enable us to know, did we do a good job, bad job, and build these models, which helps us align and articulate our story, because you just can't build something, you have to tell your story. And that's where a lot of data and data teams come along, and now building models too, right? So these lanes are divided, like who's data scientist, data engineer. But if you look at it, right, the new world, what's happening is all of us, one thing is clear, like one thing I know for sure, that how we all know how to write, type, we will all know how to prompt. And we will be able to change the behavior of the products we will use in future by prompting.
Yeah.
And those promptings won't be these prompting guides and guidelines and thousand things. It's just like me telling you, hey, dude, put it in HubSpot, and it will put it in HubSpot.
Right.
That's the kind of like the world we are going out.
Like how humans communicate right now, you basically
Correct.
replicate that with the agents.
Yeah. So that is going to happen. If that's going to happen, then look at like what will product managers, one function is product manager, then I can build 100 things and then
Yeah.
throw them all to users, which we will see a little bit, right? Right now, everybody's excited and everybody's building a risk analysis agent for contracts and customers are giving them a chance. But at
Yeah.
some point, this is like the same way like we had these apps at App Store and there's a fart app and now everybody downloads it, gives it a chance. But after some time, nobody gives that a chance because the bar for downloading an app is so high and the novelty of that goes away.
Yeah.
So novelty of AI goes away. The bar for you to add value to users, which they have already got some
You're
of
already
the
getting
value.
there to some extent, I think.
Yeah, you're already reaching that. So
Yeah.
this thing that what needs to be built and finding the real like three kind of problems. Either I can automate something, either I can augment something, or you can find a new use case for you is going to be high value because even if you can build it, you get one or two shots to get it tried by your customers and being rejected. So I think that will front load a lot of work for what data teams used to do with product managers.
Yeah.
And that won't be just iterating on paper. I think with code becoming a commodity, it will be really trying and like what eval we talked about, all these simulations will be run with a very sampled group of bought customers or paid customers. And then the breakthroughs will be this sticks and this can be done. And that I think where we are not investing today, but I think that's the future of investments. And there I see product managers and data teams have superpowers without even like a full-blown engineering team because they can build these prototypes, they can throw it to this paid or controlled user and learn a lot and then go to engineering. I think that's something like I'm scratching the surface of.
Yeah.
Sean, I know you don't want it to go to 20 years ahead, but that I think is something where the future roles are. Can I not get data insights that I want in future? I think that's going to be less and less true. I think if your job is to get me data insights because I can't get it, that I think is going to go away eventually.
I think so too. Yeah.
But
I think I've already seen that.
can you find out like what my customer care about in unstructured data? After using all the tools and give me, here is 3 ideas or 3 helpfulness updates. This is what matters to customers.
Right.
What matters, what doesn't matter. And if you could run those simulations and bring back that data, I think that job is going to be more and more in demand or needed, which may not even exist today. People are not articulating it as a job requirement, but that's what we need.
Yeah.
And product managers, I think, will become more like product makers. At least they should be able to build their first MVP. That will become a table stake. Because otherwise what happens is, even in today, what happens is either the product manager comes and just lives with this AI hype and they think everything is possible and they just throw engineering left and right and eventually they get fired because engineers complain enough. Second kind of people are like living in the old age where they take 3 months to write a PRD, gives this and then run away. And then this thing when doesn't work, they are already doing something else. These people will survive, but not get promoted, I will say. But people who can just see it through, which is come up with an idea, work with the data team, write this first version MVP, throw it out there, run a lot of simulations, and then work with engineering, bring engineering for this one thing, then continuously evolve with data engineering and PMs, talking every 3 days, looking at customer data, looking at simulations, and then putting out a new iteration is the dream team.
Yeah.
By the way, I just put data folks for you folks today.
Yeah, dude, you can't tell all our audience they're losing a job. I'm like, I was thinking about our conversation the whole time. I'm like, I think I gotta change my title to like AI evaluation scientist or something. Like, you need to something because like I'm hearing
That's the
like
future.
That's
That's
what
what
you
needed.
need.
I think
Yeah.
that's what is needed. Data scientists were born. Data scientist was not a profession. We created data scientists when we had data, we had machine learning, but we did not know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And every company was struggling. And then we said, actually, let me just send you my data scientist. And somehow the CEO felt good, the customer felt good, and they could sign a deal. That was the whole, means I was there when the whole data science was created. It was not a role, right? Means we started in 2010. I didn't know. I didn't see data
Yeah.
scientist. Come 2016, we had machine learning.
Do you know
It
what I
doesn't
was
work.
hired at? I was hired as applied statistics engineering intern
Yeah.
and then an applied statistics engineer. That was
Yeah.
what I was actually called product intelligence manager intern. I then got hired full time as an applied statistics engineer. And later in as soon as I came in, I joined Microsoft 2013. I think they did the entire data and applied scientist rebranding of the
Correct.
same type of work.
Yeah.
And that was needed because here we are, we have machine learning algorithm. None of that works. We go to customers. It works on our model. It doesn't work with their data. Now we want to send you somebody who deals with data. And we can call them a data engineer, but nobody will trust them. So let's call them data scientists. What a data scientist does, it does a discovery in your data and find the patterns and then actually allows us. And it takes 1 year for us to go build it. But evaluation is exactly at the same stage today.
Yeah.
Nobody knows like what it is. And I want to send an evaluation expert or evaluation scientist who will first tell me what needs to be evaluated. Then he will say or she will say how it needs to be evaluated. And they will say what is the right number where I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we
If you
coined
can
it.
master
We
that,
coined
Sean.
it. We coined the term here. So the three of us,
Yes.
in a
So we
decade
have
from now,
HHH,
when
we
everyone's
have
arguing,
HHH, and we
Yeah.
have evaluation scientists.
exactly, when everyone's arguing, like, oh,
You
where'd
said
that
something which
come
was very
from?
cool. Can you
AI,
name it?
AI evaluation scientist.
Yeah, AI
Okay.
evaluations. Yeah.
That's
And
what we
this will
need.
be.
We
This
should
is
just
like.
start an
AIS.
institute on this. That's it.
And this isn't some converse. This is going to be published content. So it's like it's out. It'll be out there in the ethers. Like no one can argue against us that they created it first. But
Great.
go ahead, Strapius.
No, I think we are almost at the end of the pod. But as you guys were talking, I was just thinking of a world 10 years from now. And I like it'll be like a nice because things are scary, right? People think of how scary things could be, people losing jobs and all of that. Like what will happen? And I was wondering something positive, like a dream of some sort in 10 years from now. It'd be great for every small business owner, every consultant to have. They'll probably deal with different types of problems and that they consult on. And imagine they deploy agents at a certain level and they deploy themselves for the most important aspect. And that's every like small business owner or every customer. You basically deploy your agents and maybe there'll be all these companies. I don't know if ChatGPT will create that agentic system of whatnot, but like everyone has a social media account. People have their own agents that they use for their day-to-day tasks and they use themselves for the only important ones that they want to spend energy on. And probably the importance of like there'll be more time with people if in an economy perspective everyone will have enough money to deal with. That's a different problem altogether, but that'd be like a nice situation.
I would like to continue 5 more minutes. I have 1 or 2 questions. But Shiva, please finish. This is very interesting.
Yeah, that's it. Let's continue. Yeah, let's go to yours. Yeah.
If we can, right? Thank you. So I think the interesting part here is that that's the whole idea, right, Shravya? The idea is that right now there are 7 companies which are $1 trillion worth are building software for the world. Right? That's it. And if you fit into their mold, you have a high growth business. And if you don't fit in your world, like the farmers, the restaurant owners,
exactly,
the mailmans, all are gonna go, best of luck. You don't fit into our mold. That's why you can't scale. You can't use this podcast to scale your knowledge. So best of luck. Like that's what like happening to experts all around. The idea with agents or AI is that maybe we don't need $7 trillion companies. We'll need $7,000 billion companies, which have solved 7,000 problems, which are not outside the mold. And that's what you're seeing. Like, that's where you're seeing a lot of companies are going and saying, I'm building this vertical agent. And this vertical agent, what does it do? It solves the problem of an auto dealership compliance issue. See, like the specific, like before that, what software they use, what their software stack looks like. Their software stack looks like they have bought Windows, they have bought an antivirus, and they have bought Microsoft 365 subscription.
The $7 trillion company's software is where now they're going to have a specific system that's like for their exact problem they're trying to solve.
So now
and you'll have millions of them.
There is a company which is a $1 billion company which just solves one problem for one segment, which is auto dealership. And in that dealership solves one problem, which is compliance. And hopefully they solve a one compliance problem only.
Yeah.
And if we can build that, because it's hard to build and write agent there. But if we can, this can be a $1 billion company. And look at how many auto dealership there are and how many hours humanity waste on doing that compliance grudge work, which I promise you nobody wants to do.
Yeah. So true.
Like nobody was born to just come to office, look at 10 documents and say compliant or not compliant. Like that's not
Way
something
to
we
spend a
work on.
life. Yeah.
Okay, but 5 minutes I needed from you is, what do you think how product managers will evolve? Because I wanted to get this other side perspective.
Yeah, I think
Or what do you want from your product managers?
Well, I think I'm right there
In
with
AI.
you in terms of, and I've seen some of the product managers I work with already do this, where it's like, it's not just like we are brainstorming as a team and I'm writing a PRD. It's like I wrote a PRD before I even, and then I built a prototype in Replit or something, and I'm sharing that with the team right now. And it might even be like, before I have the engineers build it, I'm sharing that with customer support or the account execs, or maybe even some like users who like we really trust. And like, so I think there's all of this opportunity to like get feedback, like kind of like that qualitative feedback that you would have to like, before you'd have to build a product and you'd have to have engineer resources. And so I think I see product managers definitely like taking on a lot of that, really, if not now, very soon with the existing kind of AI technology out there. And then I do wonder how it becomes in the future, as you were saying, where it's like when like these kind of coding tools get more and more sophisticated, if like they can even like, build some of that themselves, and then maybe it's still like leveraging engineers are brought in when it's like, hey, we need to kind of like check through the security, or we need to kind of like platformize things and have this like work with all of our existing infrastructure. I also see, so that's like kind of like them taking more on the end role. And then I think you and I we were chatting before we started recording, but I think a lot of like the best product managers that I've worked with used to be like data scientists. And like part of that's just because I'm a data scientist, but it's also because like you're saying, like those people, like if you're close to the data and you're just so much more effective at making decisions, and like you can change, like it's like you can definitely do back of the envelope math then, and then but you can make like you can pretty robust back of the envelope math. So I think I see like product managers, like just that becomes like they're 10xing in terms of like how confident they are in their decision making and prioritization. And so when stuff comes to like data scientists, we're doing work that's more around like we were saying, like evaluating stuff when it actually scales. Like I guess like I see engineering and data coming in even more at like the scaling part, where like product management can get so much more like the early iterations done on their own. And I guess like working with, I guess I would see like the whole team, but I do see, like you were saying, product managers working a lot more closer with like subject matter experts. I think a lot of PMs I work with already do that, but I do see that as like a really critical role, more critical than it was before, especially for this kind of like very narrow solution or targeted kind of solutions you're talking about. I know what your thoughts are on like changes in product management, Sravia.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I think AI is pushing us more and more towards first principle thinking. Like why the hell did we even have all of these in the first place? So the first principle thinking, right? So what I think is, like, in the world of AI, what does it make to build a system and to scale the system? I have a feeling probably similar lines as what you said, but even more drastic in my head. Maybe this is even more in the future, might not be in the like near term, but I think the boundaries of different roles will, like, will disappear, especially in the current roles that we have. And probably new roles will appear, like the evaluation role, or probably the role that just the subjectivity to objectivity role, maybe call it something else. I don't know. That this because we are trying to build the current world with agents, right? We're trying to build the human world with agents that they could go solve this problem. And I think it's a different problem altogether, not the same problems that we dealt with, which would need different roles, which would need different, way of learning how to do that and having different goals and for success, which does not, I mean, we could fit them in today's roles and stuff. But I have a feeling today's roles are going to merge into one and we'll have new roles at Lapia. That's just mine. We are all doing prediction, right?
Yeah. I
So
think
that's what I think.
you're not too far, right? So my takeaway is that we need a product maker role. Whoever does that, maybe engineers become product makers. They have this critical thinking of what to build and then they can build it. Or product managers get into that role of because they already have the first part they know how to make. But we need product makers. We need AI evaluators, which is their subjective to objectivity and the scale part. And then third is maybe we need a way to the whole engineering is not going away because no matter what you build, it needs to be scaled, it needs to be reliable, it needs to
Yeah.
have week on week, lesser cost, more speed. All that is not going. And then downstream, everything is safe, which is if I build, if I'm a rev dev engineer, then you're like good to go. So these are, I think, the top layer is still going to iterate. Thanks a lot. It was such a pleasure. I know we may not get a chance to touch on everything, but
Oh, this is
I'm so
great.
happy.
This was awesome.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I mean, some of the stuff you said, I'm just like, sweet. That's some of the things I'm doing. It seems like I'm on the right track. It was nice to have validation from someone else too. But I've got some good ideas from you too. So I really appreciate it. It's been a really practical and helpful conversation. I think especially like for data people and also PMs and anyone who's like kind of navigating what's going on with leveraging AI and agentic AI and product. Just last question for our listeners who want to like dive deeper and check out like your Maven course or follow your work. How can they stay in touch with you? I know you have like a cohort coming up too as well.
Yeah, so I think we are starting one of our cohort in July. So join us
nice.
where we discuss like how can you find AI specific opportunities. Then we break it down and say how can a single agent. People think like a risk is a single agent, but it's a multi-agent. So how can you break it down? How can you create a roadmap where your engineering can deliver something in 2 months and then iterate from there? And then whole week we spend on evaluations, how to evaluate your model, how to evaluate your agents and how to automate it. And then we look at responsible AI. And then we say how to price your product or actually make money on these.
Cool.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So these are
Almost
the
end
5
to
things.
end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that's the
Yeah.
cohort. And every Friday I show up at 9 and I try to, whatever I learned last week, I bring that in as some packaging and share that. So that's our community. Hopefully we can put the links to both of them.
Yeah, we'll
join
drop them in
us,
the
That'll
notes.
be great.
and you can send any feedback or anything else you want me to talk on LinkedIn. I'm always open for reviews and evaluate and set my next bar.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mahesh. It was wonderful having you on the Data Nebo podcast. I think it helped us get in more detail, talk in more detail about evaluation, which is the hottest it can be right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you to our listeners and subscribers. Please subscribe, please like and comment, because that's how we evaluate the Data Neighbor podcast. And we're all about evaluation here. It's very important for our future job security. So thanks,
Maybe
everyone.
watch time is what we need.
Yes, watch time is true.
Watch time,
the
right?
true evaluation metric.
Like, subscribe. And
Yes. So if you've made it this far, watch it again. You probably missed something.
this is the fun part I like about you guys. Like, there's never an end to engagement. Like, watch it again.
Yeah.
Like, he will say
Yeah.
thank you. But
Yeah,
no, watch
yeah.
it again.
There's something I mentioned in the first 5 minutes of this episode, and you're gonna have to watch it again right now if you want to see it. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.